on the panel a very interesting set of people. We have Aditya Ramakrishnan here, who is a resident developer marketing expert. Aditya, if you could just say hi. Um, I'm sure you're here. Is everybody able to hear me? They can just put like a yes. Hey, hi.
Good to meet everyone.
Yes, Aditya is the product marketing lead here and also the resident developer marketing expert. He is ex-Stripe and yeah, he's got all the hacks of Dev GTM that he will be spilling at the end of this webinar. And most importantly, we have Maninder here, who's the project manager for most of the features that we will be demoing. So this is a great chance for you guys to just ask him questions, any technical questions, any feature related questions if you're stuck. Yeah, and you can put him on the spot, and Maninder is really good at batting these questions. Awesome. At any point, if you feel that there are any questions that you have regarding the product, please feel free to chat. I mean, feel free to put them in the chat and we will answer them instantly, right? Or you can also like connect us with connect with us on Slack later. All right, so without further ado, let's get into the demo. So today what we're going to showcase is, let me just lay the land for you in terms of the structure. I'm going to be demoing a very important playbook of how you can discover, decode intent signals from your open source projects, right? How you're going to make like really key segments. And we're also going to see how you can leverage tags, which becomes very important, right, to narrow down your search. But before that, let's get into a role play mode. So I'm going to do a role play for you here. Imagine I am the SDR of an open source company and I am tasked with getting a certain amount of meetings booked for a month, right, from our open source project. Uh, so what I'm going to do is, and I'm a Reo user, I'm a Reo Power user, right? So I'm going to be taking you through these steps, which you can replicate it at your instance, right? At the end of the demo or between the demo, I'm going to like send you a PDF of this whole playbook of how to do things stepwise, right? Whatever I'm going to show, I will be sharing a playbook with you right now in the chat once I'm done with the demo. Awesome. Cool. So I have a task of getting meetings and I have huge GitHub repositories, right? Anonymous activities. So how can Rio help me de-anonymize these activities and then find the accounts that are of high intent? All right, let's get into the product. Now, once you get into the product, the first thing to do is create a very niche segment for open source. Aditya, let me know if you can see the screen. It's visible, right?
Hey, it's still on housekeeping items.
Okay, let me just switch on to view. Sharing. Screen. All right. Can you see the video? Awesome, cool. The first thing that we're going to do is build a high intent signal on GitHub activities that happen on, sorry, the activities that happen on your GitHub repo for the last 30 days with 2 or more developers active on them. Now, why 2 or more developers? We feel that what we've seen is the trend is when there are more than 2 developers, it indicates high intent, that people are evaluating you seriously. Now to create this segment, and don't worry, these steps, I will be sharing it in the chat, the exact playbook in the chat once we're done with the demo. Okay, active on GitHub in the past 30 days, right? The filters that I'm going to add is here under the activity group, I'm going to add owner and competition. You can just add owner, or if there are any complementary repos, you can add those, or competition is the best bet that you have. Between owner and competition, I would go with these both, right? Then I would filter on the number of developers, which is greater than 2. And then I would select the actions that I want. Now, for different stages of your life cycle, different actions might be relevant. For the sake of this presentation, I'm going to put this. I'm going to select all the action. I'm going to select the date range, which is the latest, last 30 days, right? And I'm going to save this. Now, this is the starting point of your high intent account on your GitHub repos. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leverage the tags feature. And as an SDR, sorry, just coming back, as an SDR, I want to narrow my search, right? I want to know the best fit accounts that I can go after, that can land me my meetings. So tags is a very important feature which can help you sort of sift through an entire bunch of, like, say, 100 400 accounts. They can give you a very narrow razor sharp search, right? So once you have this main segment, right, what I'm going to do is, before that, let me just tell you the best way to leverage Rio is to triangulate signals. Right now, the segment that we've created is triangulated only on GitHub signals, right? One of the reasons why we tell all our customers, all our users, is configure as many integrations as possible, data sources as possible, so that we can triangulate how many developers are active on across the board to give you the best result, right? Now, I can be satisfied with only this, but for the best outcomes, what I'll suggest is create one more segment based on key pages of your website. One of the key pages to show high intent is pricing, right? If I am visiting your website and looking at pricing, it shows high intent. There is a commercial opportunity. So let me create a segment of pricing and use leverage tags to sort of sift through this account itself, main account. So I go on segments and create an account segment. Viewed. Okay. Uh, Reo.Dev, since we are using a small disclaimer, since we are using a Reo.Dev tenant, we do not have pricing page on our website. So the most traction oriented pages are the playbooks, right? But if you have pricing page, that is a very key important page, and you can use that to create the segment. But for our presentation, I'm going to use now. You can name the tag like viewed playbooks, and you can be as descriptive as possible to make the person understand, or even for yourself understand, what it actually entails. Office account viewed playbooks more than 2 times. Right? Sorry. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a key website page. I'm going to do playbooks. I'm going to do all of this. All right. Count of activity is greater than 2. And again, date range, I want it to be as recent as possible. And I'm going to create this segment. All right, I think the data is loading. If you have any questions so far, please feel free to put it in the chat. Cool, awesome. So we have tags. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the main segment that we created. Let me that segment. Or this. A lot of segments being created here. The website. Okay, essentially what you can do is you can just go here. Yeah. And what I can do is now this is a secret sauce. The main segment that I created just on one signal, I can use tags to filter out active on tags. Right? So now I have an account list with triangulated signals, which are two triangulated signals. Super narrow, razor sharp, high intent. Right? Now I can be happy with this and I can go if you feel confident with, till this point, please go ahead and reach out to the buyers, which I will get to the stage in some time. But let's also add another signal of features, right? Now, if somebody is actively looking at my GitHub repo, they're active there, they are viewing my pricing page, they should also be like, in most cases, they should also be using my free trial or cloud product, right? And in your product also, there are some high intent feature pages, right? So probably we can triangulate, we can sift more of this account down to like which features people are using from this account. So what we can do is create a segment, and this is an advanced segment. So I just wanted to show you how to create an advanced segment. Let's create an advanced segment for this. Right now, we've configured Reo.Dev as our product. So segments is one of the key features, and we would like to know who's using segments, the feature of segments more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use segments as the feature, give them a tag, right? For segments, intent, intent accounts, active on product. Now I'm going to change the operator to or so that my search gets widened. I'm going to add product pages as segments. Whoever is active on my product, I'm going to add the count of developers. 2. This is the latest activity would be 30. Then I'm going to add another filter group, and on my docs, technical docs, there would be some sort of literature on segments, right? And if they are viewing a product, I mean segments on product, segments on, I mean docs, segments on docs, it is a high intent activity, a signal. The same drill goes here. after, say, 60 days. And website pages. Now there would be some sort of marketing literature on your website too. Now, if you triangulate these three signals on these three avenues, you've got a deal of high intent accounts. Awesome. I'm going to create this segment, but just a disclaimer, since again it's a Reo.Dev tenant, we might not get the desired volume of outcomes in terms of the accounts because we do not have developers on GitHub that overlap with our features. We do not have developers as such, but this is just for the sake of presentation. Let's wait. Fingers crossed if there's something coming up. Oh, brilliant. So what I'm going to do is I am going to sort of go back to the signal. I'm going to go back to the signal. Sorry, the main segment that I've created. And I am going to again search by filter by tags, which was segments, viewed segments. Sorry, like I said, since it's a Rio tenant, we do not have data, but I'm sure on your tenant, there'll be like quite good sufficient amount of data on this, right? All right, now that we have our list to go after, how do we action on this list? So the first step to do this is find the buyers. How do I find the buyer for this? For example, Cisco. We go on the prospects tab. We do not have any buyers here, but we go deep search into a RioDB, right? And we have a host of buyers here with their contact IDs, their time in the company, designation. What I'm going to do is I'm going to choose the buyers that I feel are relevant to me and that I would want to go after. Yeah. And then I'm going to click add to buyers. You can also like filter them through seniority, designation, and job function. Right now that I have a set of buyers, right, decision makers, I can action upon them by adding them to email sequences right from Reo.Dev without switching tabs. Right now, Reo, we integrate with Apollo, Outreach, and Salesloft. So if you're using any of these outreach tools, email marketing tools, please connect them to the Reo, and yeah, basically it'll make your life easy. I don't know why this is coming. All right. So what happens is it takes some time for them to sync. But essentially, my next step would be select all these buyers or whichever buyers that I want to add them to the sequence and click on any of these outreach sequences to add them to any of these outreach sequences. Subsequently, what you can do is you can also go into LinkedIn and see their profile. And if your workflow starts from LinkedIn for outreach, that is also something that you can do. Great. This comes, okay, this is the end of the demo. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. Now, another interesting part would be I'm going to hand it over to Aditya. He's going to share some GTM frameworks, dev GTM frameworks that he has worked in the past, and yeah, like he's going to Aditya, the stage is all yours.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Mithali. Yeah, I was just waiting for the camera to work. Thanks. Yeah, I think Mithali is like probably oversold what I've done, but yeah, we had a little extra time, so I thought, okay, let me just work through some of the stuff that I've done in the past and probably may be relevant for this audience here. So, just going to share my screen. Mithali, is my screen visible? Is my
Yeah, it
screen?
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Please let
Okay.
you.
Great. So, let me get into this. So basically, what I wanted to do was talk a bit about the major GTM roles that we have in any SaaS organization and any developer tool organization as well, which is the role of the BDR and the role of the AE, and how to think about aligning this with the overall company GTM strategy, right? And it's just this stuff that I worked through in the past and built my own frameworks around, and stuff to think about, and helps kind of bring focus and clarity on what works, what doesn't work, what to focus on, stuff like that, right? So let's start very high level at strategy, and then I'll dive into uh, more like specific things around role of GTR. Yeah. So just very quickly about me, just so that it gives context on where a lot of this is coming from. I've been in marketing for about 18 years. My last stint was with ImageKit. We were a 5 million ARR API for media resizing. So very hardcore dev tech, no interface kind of product. Uh, Before that, I was at Stripe. I've also done a bunch of stints at in fintech and email marketing, and another dev tech one with Bluehost when we're running the cloud computing cloud hosting play, and we're trying to beat AWS at its own game, right? And a lot of, and also this stuff, some of these frameworks have refined with advisory work with pre-revenue SaaS startups, right? So with them, it's very often a case of I ask them like, how do you make money? How does a potential customer find you? How do they play with your product? Uh, why should they give you money? How do they go about paying you? Is there a sales process, a demo process, getting into that, right? And from that, we kind of drive down into how do you set up the sales motion? What does a BDR have to do? What does a AE have to do? How does a founder step in? System integrators, sales consultants, technical consultants, all that kind of drives from there, right? So with that, I'll kind of get into the framework itself. So I hope my screen's big enough, but let me see if this works. Yeah. So it's a simple 2 by 2 axis. I believe we can put pretty much any thought process into a 2 by 2 axis and it'll make sense. Uh, on the y axis, we have whose need we're solving for as a product, and the x axis is who's buying for it, who's paying for it, right? So I'll go backwards in terms of quadrants. Number four, this is almost a non-quadrant, so I'll spend the least time here. It's like the need is like of a senior leadership or an exec, but it's not big enough a problem for them, so they may delegate it and say, buy it for me or solve it for me. I'm not really interested. Products aren't going to really live here, right? You're either going to move downwards to quadrant one, or you'll move across to quadrant three, right? Quadrant three is a very classic top-down sales process for an exec tool, and things like where execs need it, it's solving a problem for them. They may not be the primary users. Someone else may be operating the product, and they may be consuming the outcomes of it, but they're the ones making the decision on it, right? So examples of this, ServiceNow and Workday, if we look at larger SaaS companies, very classic thing, right? Like CXOs are going to make a decision on what kind of an ERP, whether it's SAP or Workday or anything else like that, even though a whole bunch of other people are using it, right? Dev tools, Veracode and CloudBees as well, very top-down process, very large kind of impact on the organization, and it's the need is very something that is driven from very top-down process, right? This is where a lot of dev tools hang out, which is the try and buy, where the need is an end user. The end user is going to be using it, but there is a very strong senior leadership buy-in process before finally signing a contract, right? So it's not something that a line user can use and buy themselves or make a decision themselves. They have to push it up the pipe. Typically, because usage and evaluation versus deployment are completely different uh, realities for such kind of products, right? So this is where typically a limited trial or a trial may be very common to see among such products. And right, ensure from a GTM perspective, ensuring trial success happens well, that people are able to trial it successfully and understand what the product does and evaluate it correctly. But having done that, when they pass through that gate and say, okay, we want to think about buying, and then it goes into a classic sales-led process, making sure that converts is again a very crucial thing. And then also doing qualification is super important, because you have all kinds of people and all kinds of companies trialing it, but you want to cherry pick the high revenue opportunity ones which are worth the effort and worth the cost of investing a sales motion into it, right? So whole bunch of dev tools live out here, like Browser Stack and Datadog are very typical ones, right? QA engineers will try out Browser Stack, they'll use it, they'll probably use it in a very limited capacity as well. But if you're looking at going org wide, you're going to run up the ladder to talk to VPs of engineering to get that deployed and used across the org. Datadog is observability, so again, it's going to get tested out, evaluated against other competitors and peers, but deploying it org wide is a complex process, so senior leadership is going to get involved in that, right? Similar state for things like Neo4j and Sentry. And I'm a little cheeky here, but I'll add even Jira here, right? Like our favorite tool in the world. I'm not sure who really loves Jira, but somehow engineering leadership says, yeah, we need Jira, and then everyone has to kind of use it. So I'm going to cheekily put Jira in here. This is the big one, right? All in on PLG, where it's an end user's need that we're solving for. It's also end users pretty much empowered or has a free capacity to buy and start using this, because it may not be such a big deal in terms of deploying it and using it org wide, right? Canva, classic example. It's almost a B2C product in many, in a sense of the term. My alma mater image kit was very similar. It could be used by just a front end team, front end dev team, even at large organizations. It was only when we were looking at massive traffic, like say hundreds of terabytes a month, that it became like a full enterprise sales motion. But yeah, otherwise it was pretty much self-serve, even for people doing, say, $5,000 a month, like a 60K ACV in a year. Guys were doing this self-serve. DigitalOcean Docker, again, Docker's open source, can be used pretty much on its own. They have obviously an enterprise sales motion because that's where the money comes from, but it's theoretic. You're not limited in the way you can use it, right? Unless you're really going into an enterprise sales motion because you want the negotiating power, you want to get the features, you want to get the cost effectiveness rather than adding one by one licenses. And also maybe some of those enterprise nice features like single sign-on and security and things like that, right? Postman, Redis also kind of in my head fit into this quadrant. Now, these quadrants aren't hard and fast, right? But it's more of a way to think about, even for your own products and your own companies, like how we kind of making our product available and what's the journey that our customers we want our customers to follow to come and try out the product and finally eventually like it and pay for it, right? There will be cases where in some situations, some segments, some ICPs, you may be in quadrant one, but you may be in quadrant two for something else, or you may be in quadrant three even. Like you may have a sub product that's very niche and is very focused on, that's pure top down sales motion and is not even trialable to the public, right? So but it's always been a good lens for me to decide, like, okay, how do I even think about the product, and where does it all fit, right? Where does all the activities, whether we're doing it in marketing or GTM or even customer success, where does it fit into the grand scheme of things for GTM, right? And yeah, so from that, I've put down a few rules. This is again very much my personal like perspective and things that I've helped drive in the past. And I focused only on quadrants 1 and 2 because in my head, like a lot of dev GTM tools probably sit in that uh, these two quadrants. And that's where also a little nuance is involved, because you have outbound, you have inbound, you have qualification, you have product-led signals, you have sales-led signals, you have a whole lot of stuff happening, right? So kind of defining that. So I just put down a few things which I thought, like, what, if I may call it that, maybe it sounds a little pompous in my head, but keys to success for these roles, right? So if you're all in on PLG, it's fully self-serve. For BDRs, it's really about identifying, in my head, like identifying high potential opportunities. Because as you scale, you start hitting needle in the haystack situations, right? Like at ImageKit, we had over 150,000 users, active users. And then finding potential high paying customers out of that is a fairly complex activity. But it's not just that, but also having to reach out to them or connect with them and start a sales motion at just the right time. You do it too early, they're still evaluating, they're still not matured, it goes to waste. You do it too late and they've kind of settled down and they started using it at a lower level. Again, it's not too, there's never too late, but it gets a lot harder, right? Also capitalizing rapidly on hand raise, because if someone's raising their hand and saying, listen, I want to talk to sales and talk about a quote unquote enterprise deal, they're 150% doing this with 3 4 other alternatives as well. And kind of getting on top of that fast is very crucial, right? It's also from a product perspective for BDRs, I think it's very important to be very good at driving outcomes of the product, because users will get in, they'll use it in some fashion, they'll figure out, they'll learn a little, stumble around, but really helping them get to the outcomes they want and really how to use it, and getting them from being uh, kind of band-aid or casual users to being real power users is a very crucial uh, skill set for BDRs, because you get into those conversations and you're like, how are you using it? Here's how you can use it better. This is a hack for your use case. This is a trick for your use case. That's kind of intel that really goes a long way, right? Uh, for AEs in the space, I think a lot of it is actually becomes enterprise deal closing, because so much will happen through self-serve. The deals that you want to get involved in are going to be high ticket, big bang deals, right? And when does this happen? When do these deals come to the sale deal table? When do these accounts come to the deal table is when there's some complexity as well on deployment, right? So if like 3 front-end engineers are using ImageKit, but then their entire team is like 45 people strong and we need to deploy it across the entire org, that's something that's going to come to become a sales motion. And A's need to be competent and very expert at how to scale that up and how to deploy it effectively uh, across things, right? And switching over to second quadrant, where the difference here is you have very little limited time for the user to fall in love with your product, and very often it may come with a premeditated intent that we need to buy something. So let's trial a bunch of products, see what's good, see what fits our use case, and then get into a very proper purchasing cycle after that, or even during that, or even before that, to make a final purchase, right? So here, BDRs, a lot of it is going to be account qualification, because a lot of people are trying it, but who really fits your ICP, who's got the right use case, who fits product and use case, what about opportunity sizes, account worth the effort, or do you just let it go and let them use it on a trial, or give them a smaller account, but don't make a big long deal process out of it, right? Product, and so a lot of these products are complex, so making sure that they do their trial well and they get to the goal that they want is also something that very often assistants can help. And goes with that to just say that being a great diagnostician is super important, that because especially, like, I'll take the example of Datadog. It's a very complex product. Even in the trial period, it's going to take time and effort from the customers to figure out and use it, and helping them do that and plug it in and integrate things and debug problems goes a long way to getting a successful trial. And because if you don't hit that trial success, the next step is going to be almost impossible to achieve, right? It's also a great time because it do almost working collaboratively with the people doing the trial to get intel on budget, who's going to do the buying, what's the process, is there going to be an RFP or something else, or is it just like a couple of companies being evaluated and it's a more qualitative process? Is there anything else that's involved, right? Uh, for A's, the big one here is deployment at scale, because a trial by definition is going to be at a very narrow focus scale and a very focused scope. So then you go from like a 500 scope or a 500 scale to 100 and 100 scope and scale. And, everyone's going to have success clauses, backup clauses in case, especially for large deals like 100, 150, 200 plus K deals, that the deployment has to work, otherwise we're backing out. And there's a lot at stake here. So managing that is a very crucial skill there, right? And very often this goes hand in hand with larger enterprise IT work that's happening, right? So you may have systems integrators involved, you may have consulting firms involved, you may have auditors involved. So navigating that tends to be an interesting it's always an interesting maze to navigate, and it's a good thing for AEs to get used to that, right? Uh, yeah, and we'll also get involved in non-tech stakeholders as well, because, like I said, very often it may come with a premeditated decision that we need to buy some product in this category. Let's trial five of them, select the top two, and then go into like a RFP or a reverse bidding process. So uh, non-tech stakeholders may be very strongly involved in something like this, especially if it's a big ticket deal. So yeah, another thing for is to get to kind of think about, and like, okay, these are people who I love to talk to quite often, right? So yeah, uh, actually, yeah, that's it. That's all I had, and just some thoughts and stuff that I jotted down over the years, and I thought, yeah, why not share it with a uh, similar audience, and hopefully it helps.
Awesome. I think what we can do is we can share this amazing PPT with the participants,
Yep,
and
happy to.
for the yeah. Awesome. So this brings us to the end of this demo day. If you have any questions, we are there on Slack. Please send them across to us. Hopefully, it was useful for you, and we're going to host such demo days on more interesting playbooks in the coming months. So look out for that. But yeah, um, thank you so much for joining in. We will be sending you the recording of this session. The playbook, I have just put it on the chat, so you can go through the playbook, replicate it in your Rio instance, and you can just tell us the results, what you see. All right. Thank you guys for joining in, and have a great day. Thank you. Thanks, Aditya. You're on mute.
Thanks, everyone. I've put my deck into the chat, and I think we can share that with the recording as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much.